Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Over the years, our federal government has declared war not just on other countries, but on such things as drugs, poverty, and in recent years, during the Biden administration, the government, including senior leaders in the U.S. Army, declared war on the dead, specifically dead Confederates in Arlington Cemetery, and what's known as the Reconciliation Monument. The woke mafia and cowards in the GOP decided that the memorial to Confederate dead just had to go. Fortunately, many of the descendants of Confederate soldiers and other decent people opposed this desecration, and in honor of those brave Confederates, put up a fight, a legal fight. Defend Arlington was formed for that purpose. Our guest tonight has been very involved in that fight. We are proud to have North Carolina attorney with the Southern Legal Resource Center, Kirk Lyons. He joins us tonight. But first, it's time for the Informer Report. The big win for the TFA and GOA that I talked about Monday, that's the Tennessee Firearms Association and Gun Owners of America, involving the suit between the Lee administration, Scarametti, and this was the Hughes versus Lee case. It was our unconstitutional intent to go armed clause in our Tennessee Code annotated, and the law that made it illegal to carry a gun in a park. Now, the court struck it down at Chancery Court in Gibson County, and I think I mentioned that there was a twist later on in that day. Now, normally what happens after 30 days, if nobody appeals, and the state could appeal, then that becomes the new law. Well, Representative Chris Todd, and hey, look, I've always thought he's one of the better guys that we had in the legislature. He sponsored a lot of gun legislation for the TFA over the years. He got this, well, and I'm going to say bright idea, but it's not a bright idea, and he's entirely too intelligent for this to have been his idea. I think he was told, you will do this, and I think he caved. That's my opinion. And he said, well, you know what, he's encouraging the AG to appeal this. He said, because the argument is so strong, I think we'll win it, and right now, he somehow thinks that it only applied to Gibson County, which that's not the case, and that we'll win this, and then it'll just be better overall. Fortunately, we've had several people counter that argument. Representative Clay Doggett put out a video, Jody Barrett, and Brent Taylor from Memphis, and so we're hoping that the AG does not, in fact, file an appeal. And what we're asking is that if you haven't already, you call the AG's office and say, look, you guys have already spent enough of our tax dollars to take our rights over all these years. Why don't you just let us enjoy our rights and not appeal this? And so that's what we're encouraging everybody to do. Call the AG's office. His number is 615-741-3491. That's 615-741-3491. Also, go to the Tennessee Firearms Association website. Just go to TennesseeFirearms.com, and there's information on there about contacting other representatives and trying to make more of an issue of this. I'm really concerned that the AG is going to appeal. And the problem with that is just an appeal could drag out for another couple of years. And then I have no confidence that just because Chris Todd says that's such a strong case that it would turn out in our favor. I'm not confident of that. And we shouldn't be, this is like you win a close football game and you're going to give the other team the ball on the 1 yard line and give them 4 downs after you've already won. It's insane. So that is a serious concern. So make that call. Get on Tennessee Firearms Association's website. There's a resolution going around. I'm not sure if that's posted on the site yet, but if you know Richard Archie, and if you're involved with TFA at all, you know Richard Archie, get in touch with him to get that resolution, have your county GOP sign it, have your county commission sign it. Last Monday, we also talked about Defend the Guard. I covered Representative Rick Eldridge's attempts to meet with the Tennessee National Guard leaders that oppose Defend the Guard to nail down talking points. And we talked about that. Now, I want to say something. We had somebody contact us, and I'm not going to mention their name, but I really appreciate them. We had this as an exclusive story. To include, we have the email on our website, and of course it's out there in other places now, but we do appreciate that heads up, and we're glad to help in these kind of fights. I called around today to see what the status was, and what I know is we still need to put pressure on the chair of the committee, Representative Iris Rutter, 615-741-8695, and ask her to schedule a real summer study. And also, you can call the Speaker's office, 615-741-2343. And call your rep, call your senator, let them know, hey, look, we want something done. We want a summer study, a true summer study. We're going to have, on Monday, we're going to have Nate Dressel on. He is in the Tennessee National Guard. He does, as a civilian, he does support this legislation. He's well versed on it. And when we get him on the show, he's going to talk more about Title 10, Title 32, and what the Defend the Guard bill really does, which is pretty simple. It just says, follow the Constitution. If a war's not declared, we don't send our National Guard. That's all it is. Trump's flag burning ban. So let me say a couple of things. Trump has said that it's going to be he's going to initiate a flag burning ban, and I think a year in jail was mentioned. Now, a couple of things here. Now, it was brought up that that's going to put him at odds with a Supreme Court decision from 1989, Texas v. Johnson, if I remember right. Anyway, Trump doesn't have the authority to do an executive order on something like this, okay? That he does not have that authority. He certainly doesn't have the authority to make it a year-long sentence. But I want to dig into this a little more. I'm totally against burning a flag. Okay, I don't think anybody, I do not believe that is free speech. Okay, and understand, it did not become free speech until about 1989, if I'm understanding correctly as far as what the court. Now, it's another court creation. It's another court distortion. In fact, the whole thing is distorted because if you know anything at all about the history of the court and our Bill of Rights, this whole incorporation doctrine from the 14th Amendment, that was created by the court. It was not created by the legislature. It's not part of the 14th Amendment. It's a pure creation of the courts. It was 60 years later before they even started this garbage. The funny thing is, even though Trump doesn't have the authority to do this, accepting the idea that burning a flag is speech, when you accept that, you're accepting the right of the court to set all those parameters. I guarantee you burning the flag was not the intention of the founders when they passed the Bill of Rights, because remember, the Bill of Rights were a limit on the federal government. They were not a limit on the state governments. And so if we followed that, the Supreme Court wouldn't have anything to say about that Texas law. Okay, or any other law like that. So it's all convoluted, and keep in mind, even with the original Constitution before the end of the amendments, the court gives opinions. The executive has to uphold them. They cannot force the president to uphold them. If the Congress doesn't like what the president does, then they have the options of impeachment. I'm not suggesting he should be impeached, okay, for this. I'm just saying he doesn't have the authority to do this, but the court has distorted this. And if you accept that a flag burning is speech, you might want to go reconsider and look at the whole historical issue. This is a more recent addition, another perversion by the Supreme Court. Now, Trump, and I'm just going to call this a stab in the back to MAGA. He is talking about allowing 600,000 Chinese students to come to America. That's insane. 6 is too many, but 600,000? I mean, we're in the process of getting rid of all these illegals. We already know we have a problem with the Chinese. The Chinese steal our technology when they come over here. This is just insane. This makes no sense. And it's a stab in the back, bottom line. I want to say something about TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. There's a lot of people on the left who have it. Anything and everything he does is wrong, bad, stupid, whatever. But we got some people on the right who have TDS, and in their mind, he can do nothing wrong. That's a problem too. Our founders gave us a Constitution. They didn't give us a president who can just decide this, that, and the other. They gave us a Constitution. The Constitution needs to be in effect and needs to be held in higher esteem than any elected official. President, congressman, you name it. And that's it for the Informer Report today. Now a little bit about our guest for tonight, Kirk Lyons. He is the Chief Trial Counsel for the Southern Legal Resource Center, an organization that has become the cornerstone of legal advocacy for the Confederate heritage community and constitutional sanity beginning in 1996. Kirk is currently working with the Defend Arlington organization. He's been involved in these types of cases for a long time and is well respected. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing tonight?
Pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, definitely glad to have you. So 96, but I take it you were involved in these type fights before 96?
I had done some more national issued advocacy, and I started, I guess the one that's most famous would be the Branch Davidian standoff. I was the first attorney there to advocate for sanity. And after the place burned down, we filed civil suits against Janet Reno and Clinton and all of the usual gang. And those cases dragged on till 2000. I was the last third-party negotiator of the Montana Freeman standoff, and I ended that peacefully. This is the longest federal law enforcement siege in American history.
Wow.
And it was right about that time that I started specializing in Confederate cases. And at the time, the big issue was school banning of Confederate symbols. And we represented nonviolent, peaceful, wonderful kids that the only fault they had was that they thought they had the First Amendment right to wear the symbol of their ancestors to school. And all of these kids that we represented over the years, they were marvelous kids. They had the right idea. They understood why the symbol was important to them. They weren't using it to intimidate anybody.
Right.
And they got crapped on by the school board uniformly. And they just about ended school-free speech. Is just about over. It has been over for some time. And a lot of it was because our country allowed those kids to have that right stolen away from them by tyrannical school superintendents and principals. And it was a good fight. We're glad we did it. That went on to things like license plate cases for Confederate heritage organizations and parades. When the UDC wanted to march in a July 4th parade and they couldn't because they're the UDC, they'd call us. And back in those days, if it was a government-involved ban, we couldn't lose the case. Today, with the so-called government speech, I don't know that we could win it.
When did the so-called government speech come about?
The so-called government speech came in with the Walker case in 2015. That's a Supreme Court decision that basically said that the Texas Division Sons of Confederate Veterans could not have a Confederate battle flag on their license, on their vanity tag, which people pay extra for. And of course, it's not government speech. It's the speech of the people that pay the extra money to get that on their tag.
Right.
You know, nobody really thinks that the state of Texas is endorsing Texas A&M, because there's a Texas Aggie plate on there any more than they would the University of Texas. So it's a ridiculous decision. It's just that our Supreme Court has shown extreme cowardice in dealing with any kind of issue for normal Americans like Confederates.
Absolutely. So for those unfamiliar, what is the Reconciliation Monument and what is the story behind it?
Well, it's basically the brainchild of the post Civil War era in politics. Grover Cleveland, who was one of the first Democratic presidents to be elected after Reconstruction, made an attempt at reconciliation. He was going to return battle flags to the states that made up the Confederate States. And the North had a howl and a half about that. Oh, no, you can't do that. Treason, rebellion, da-da-da-da-da. Waved the bloody shirt for basically the last time. And they killed reconciliation in the Grover Cleveland administration. Fast forward to the Spanish-American War. William McKinley is the president. And for the first time, the first generation after the war, the sons and grandsons of Confederate soldiers enlisted in the volunteer regiments and the U.S. Army to fight in Cuba. And it was kind of considered the era of good feelings, the era of reconciliation. And McKinley was quite impressed by the love that he saw in the South for a reunited country. And he thought that that was a wonderful thing that should be built on, and that the South should be rewarded for standing by Old Glory in the war against Spain. So he began an era of reconciliation that included burying Confederate soldiers in Arlington and starting to move them from the sites of the old prisoner of war camps and the old hospitals from the war, where the men had died and been given hasty burial. And so in the spirit of reconciliation, it was thought most appropriate to put all the Confederates in one place in Arlington, which became Section 16, Jackson Circle. And it was decided that, and upon the petition of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, that the Confederate section would be crowned by a memorial that would be built by the internationally renowned sculptor Moses Ezekiel, who was living in Italy at the time.
Confederate veteran, right?
He was a Confederate veteran. He was the first Jewish cadet at VMI. He served in the ranks at the Battle of Newmarket and was a drill master at the Siege of Petersburg, and trained, at the suggestion of General Lee, trained as a sculptor, bronze sculptor after the war, and became internationally renowned, had a studio in Italy. Wow. And he was selected to build what became known as the Reconciliation Memorial. And until December of 2023, there it sat in Confederate Section 16 in Arlington National Cemetery. Yeah. So until brought down by the last regime.
Right.
The so-called Secretary of Defense of the Biden regime brought it down just before Christmas in 2023.
Right.
Illegally.
Well, and so there were some statutes that he violated. There were some laws on the books that he actually violated in doing that, right?
He was. And he was told many times that all you have to do to exempt the removal of this memorial is call it a grave marker, because the naming commission, not the blaming commission. I've been told I got to stop that. The naming commission exempted grave markers from removal. They're exempted. But of course, Lloyd Austin was all in favor of getting rid of all of these things. Yeah. And so he couldn't move it fast enough. All of the procedural niceties that the law requires, he just bulldozed through so he could get it down and as fast as possible. Didn't wait to get money to do it. He used existing resources from his budget to take it down and spent $3 million doing so. So it's a flagrant violation. We filed a lengthy lawsuit in the D.C. District Court. One of Biden's handpicked judges, Beryl Howell, who she couldn't get rid of our case fast enough. We appealed it to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and to moot our case, the Army pulled a fast one, again, violating a whole ton of procedural niceties and requirements. They gifted the memorial the pieces that had after been taken down in December of 2023 to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and in a sweetheart deal that again they were required by two separate federal statutes to notify the consulting parties, which was concluded Defend Arlington, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, the stakeholders, the family members, descendants of Moses Ezekiel, and anybody buried there in Confederate 16. They were required to notify and work with us to receive come to a joint resolution of what we're going to do with the memorial now that it's down. And of course, they didn't do any of that. So we had a decision. The court very dishonestly just called our case moot because the memorial was down. So then we had the choice of going to the Supreme Court of the United States or doing something else. And we came to the conclusion that the Supreme Court, we could spend $15,000 getting our case, the writ of certiorari filed, and the Supreme Court would probably thumbs down. Yeah. You know, we did not see that this court had the backbone or the temerity to do right by the American people and take that case. They would not. And so it would die on the vine there. Excuse me. So we decided, well, we've got maybe one more lawsuit in our shot locker, but we should, since this has always been a combined arms fight, that it's not just throw money at lawyers and get a ruling, because every Confederate case is political.
Yep.
Absolutely. And you learned that the hard way. Donald Trump learned that all of his cases are political. He learned that the hard way. Yep. Last election go around before it was stolen from him. We decided that we needed to play the political, social media, litigation, and political routes, that we would fight all of those so that everybody would have a place in the trenches to fight and a place in the firing line. And so we played all of those cards, holding the last lawsuit back in case to file only if it was absolutely necessary. And so then we started putting pressure on Trump to issue an executive order to put it back, started encouraging Hegseth to denote it as a grave marker and exempt it and put it back. And then we started putting pressure on Youngkin. We had all our Virginia friends contact Governor Youngkin and say, look, you know, you did the right thing to take the monument when there was a chance that it might have ended up being smelted by the Biden regime. But it looks like it would be in good hands if it went back. So could you please give it back to the Army, and it can go back up in Arlington National Cemetery? And we believed that that's the only place it could go, because when they took down the memorial, they literally desecrated the grave of Moses Ezekiel, and they desecrated every veteran buried in Section 16. And for my money, every grave in Arlington National Cemetery was desecrated by that removal. And so that's the only place it could go. Can't go to Newmarket. It can't go anywhere else. It's got to go back to Arlington, because it's a grave desecration, a continuing grave desecration until it returns. And so I guess it's been about 3 weeks ago, Hegseth, I mean, by this time, we're getting thousands of people to contact Trump and thousands of people to contact Hegseth and sign please sign the Trump executive order and Defend Arlington, putting the one-click email that allowed us to send thousands of emails to individual congressmen and senators. That all had a cumulative effect. The SCV got involved, the UDC got involved to help, and we turned the trick, and Hegseth announced that it would be going back to Arlington.
Great. Now, I want to say, now, wasn't there a group of maybe some organization of a union organization that
The
also,
daughters, yes, that was part of it, of the fight. The Daughters of Union Veterans passed a resolution at their national convention unanimously asking for the memorial to go back into Arlington National Cemetery. We also got a letter from the great nephew of William McKinley, who is chief of staff of the Descendants of Presidents organization, and also a great grandson of Grover Cleveland, who wrote a letter to Trump. And he got it through to Trump because he knew Trump's chief of staff personally. So we had people pulling levers and pushing buttons, sending letters and contacting, playing the political card, and it worked. And it worked. And we still have one lawsuit left if we have to file it. But our hope is that, legal fighting is very expensive. You got to pay your dues, and our movement did pay its dues. We raised an incredible amount of money, more than has ever been raised in a heritage fight that I know of. I don't think anybody's ever raised more money than Defend Arlington did in fighting this fight.
wow.
For a while, you had an SCV lawsuit as well, and that was had to be funded. So it was an expensive fight. But law fighting and political fighting is expensive. And if you want to be counted, you got to pay your dues.
Absolutely.
And you've got to never give up. And you've got to have unending patience for your friends, and you've got to be unremittingly hostile to your enemies.
I like that idea, especially the last one. Now, but this is not going up right away. It's going to be 2 years,
here's
right?
what it is. It's a loan. Now, it's kind of weird. It's a loan for 50 years. And the Center for Military History will be receiving it from the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so 50 years from now, what are they going to do? They're going to give it back to Virginia? We hope not. And our work will be to make sure that doesn't happen, that if it goes back to Arlington to stay. They need, Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, needs to declare that it is a grave marker and was exempt from removal in the first place.
Okay, so he still hasn't done that.
He still has not done that. He needs to.
Any indication that he might?
Well, all we can do until we get a hotline, and we may be able to develop one because we represent members of the Ezekiel family that are very pro Reconciliation Memorial. Hegseth acknowledged that it was one of the requests of the family that moved him to restore it to Arlington. So we've got an in there. We will have to continue to work with that. And what we want to do is push. Look, you got to play that card. It's a grave marker. Right. It's a grave marker for Ezekiel. It's a grave marker for Brigadier General Marcus G. Wright, who's also buried very close to the memorial. It's a grave marker for all 480 graves in Confederate Section 16. Right. And grave marker is the magic word. That's the word of art that exempts it according to the Naming Commission.
Okay.
So
right now,
people should use that when they talk to their Congress critter. They should refer to it as a memorial/grave marker.
Okay. Now, right now, it's scheduled to go back up in 2027.
2027. We think that that's too long. Yeah. Now, obviously, there was some internal damage when the Biden regime took it down. That's going to have to be fixed, and they're going to have to figure out how they're going to put it back up. They've got to go canvass the site at Confederate Section 16. They got to move some concrete out of there that they used to fill the hole. When they took it off, the plinth is still there. And so they've got some work to do. And I do concede that'll take some time. But I think it needs to be done as quickly as possible. One thing, the forces of darkness, the monsters that took it down, are not done. And they will do what they can to keep it down and keep it out of Arlington.
Right. And who are some of those monsters?
I don't use that word monster lightly. They are monsters. If they're after our monuments, they are monsters, and they should be treated like monsters.
Can you name names?
Well, let's start with Elizabeth Warren, my former legal research professor from law school. She is the one, and see, the other thing is, it's a lot of these woke Congress critters and senators that refer to my ancestors as traitors and insurrectionists. And so what that tells us is they are treating our memorial as if we have been attainted, which is unconstitutional, which is another shot in our locker. If they want us to play that card, we want to call what they're trying to do a unconstitutional bill of attainder, which means you can't make a corruption of blood by tainting us as the descendants of traitors, and thus we are traitors.
Right.
And so that's a card we have not really played yet, but you will be hearing more about that. The more the left monsters call it treason and that we're traitors and that this is a symbol of treason, we're going to throw the bill of attainder back in their face.
Well, the fact that the people that fought the war on both sides, I mean, McKinley and others McKinley was a former...
He was a major in the Union Army.
Right. I mean, if they were like, hey, it's time to reconcile, and they were good with it, then I don't know why anybody in a generation after that wouldn't be good with it.
They had a chance to put them all on trial for treason, including Jefferson Davis, and they didn't do it because Salmon P. Chase told Andrew Johnson, we can't convict them for treason because they don't fit the bill of treason under the constitutional definition.
Yep, absolutely. And I know some people want to bring up Texas.
The North more fits the definition of treason than the South did.
Oh, I agree, absolutely. And the whole Texas White decision, they try to hide behind that one, but that's nothing. There's no substance to that in terms of...
None at all.
None
at all.
Right.
So right now, with the National Defense Authorization Act of 2026 on the horizon, and that will be a must-pass bill. There are two provisions that we're telling people about that are in the House version that will be debated around September 11th, and there's a Senate version that has objectionable language, what I call Confederate-ophobic language. And we're telling our people to go to defendarlington.org and click to email your congressman and your senators to tell them that the House bill for the NDAA that will be debated on September 11th, they need to tell their congressman to vote against or to vote for an amendment that will remove the anti-Confederate sentiments in the House resolution that will be the NDAA.
Who has that amendment?
That amendment is, let me get my glasses on here. Tell your congressman that that's Amendment 2866 on page 426 of the bill. And it basically says, Section 2866, limitation on use of funds for contravention or reversal of implementation of recommendation of commission on the naming of certain items of the Department of Defense. Basically, it would forbid the Secretary of Defense from renaming any bases further back to their old names, and it would restore the name of the woke names that were replaced. It would also prevent him from renaming any further assets, and it could also endanger the Reconciliation Memorial. So we're telling people to go to defendarlington.org and click. There'll be a one click, and you put some basic information, and you can email your congressman and your senator and tell them to vote no or vote for an amendment that will strip the Strickland Amendment.
Okay.
You'll see the language in the defendarlington.org site.
Okay, so the Strickland Amendment is what we need to be pulled out of there. We don't
out.
We don't currently have an amendment to do what we want.
We would not offer an amendment. We would just strip that one out.
Okay, strip out the Strickland. Okay. All right, cool.
And then there will be, at some point before the Senate takes up, the Senate has a similar bill, And we're working on that now as to how we will address that. And I don't, right now we're telling people focus on the House. And you can also call your Congress critter on the switchboard, the 202 number you'll see here in just a second. Call the switchboard and tell your congressman. You can then hang up and call again and ask for your senators and get a staffer and tell them, vote, if they're the House member, vote no, or vote to strip that amendment out, the Strickland amendment out, 6866, or 2866, excuse me. And then call your senator and tell them that the bill that would prevent name change backs in Virginia needs to be taken out of the Senate version. And of course, eventually it'll all have to be the exact same bill that both houses vote on and it becomes law. But now call your congressman, one click your congressman at defendarlington.org, and stay tuned so that we can let you know when we need to go to work on the Senate.
Okay. Now, so we know who some of the bad actors are, but I mean, this is all part of a bigger push. And let's talk about who the people are that are really pushing this. I mean, I think they're all just a bunch of Marxists. I think you got a bunch of...
It is a bunch of this. Yeah, we saw a communist insurgency in 2020.
Yep.
All those riots were part of a Marxist insurgency to undermine the foundations of our country. And the attack on our history and our heritage is nothing more than the Marxist, divide and conquer. Get the low-hanging fruit first, which has always been Confederate for them. Get rid of that and then move on to Columbus, move on to Abraham Lincoln, move on to every other hero that we have. Get rid of them all, and then we'll start giving you heroes back, like Rosa Parks and Vladimir Ilyich Lenin and Joseph Stalin. You'll get new heroes, or you'll end up in a gulag somewhere. And don't think that can't happen in this country.
Yeah.
So that's what you're fighting. These are monsters. That's what, when I say monsters, they're Bolsheviks, they're Marxists. Yep. And they have revolutionary fervor, and they don't stop and they don't give up. And we got to be just like them. We got to be Energizer bunnies, just like the Marxists. We've got to have Christian zeal for our heritage, like they do for tearing it down.
Yep. And
if we don't, we won't win. If we don't, we will not win. You can only fight revolution with counter-revolution, in my opinion. And so that means we've got to show the same revolutionary zeal for our side and for our God and for our heritage and country that they do, and tried to tear all that down.
Back when the Confederate flag was a big issue in South Carolina and other places, it's a lot of people didn't. Oh well, we don't care. But we knew then, because if you thought about it, if you just thought about it for a minute, okay, wait a minute. Number one, they're mislabeling the flag. Okay, I mean, that flag didn't bring any slaves over here. Okay, I don't know if those people know that, but that. So well, wait a minute. If that flag has to go down, the flag that actually brought slaves over here, well, that's next. They don't get it. The people that are okay with Confederate history being desecrated and treating the Confederacy like they were all a bunch of traitors, they don't understand the game that's being played here, because a lot of those things, especially since it all revolves around slavery, well, then, like you said, they're coming after Washington. They're coming, and we're already seeing that.
And they'll tell you right now, you ask any Marxist, any Antifa, BLM, whatever, or some ever woke student campus type with purple hair, you ask them what the United States flag, the Old Glory, signifies, and they'll say white supremacy. They won't miss a beat. They consider the U.S. flag a white supremacist flag. It's maybe not as bad, but maybe is as bad or more than the Confederate battle flag. And they've pretty much done a number on that. Their Marxist propagandists did a really thorough job on the battle flag. There's still resistance to it being accepted as a bad flag, but the mainstream has turned their back on us. Yeah. And we have to change that. We have to change that.
Well, and the GOP, a lot of them, they're cowards about this. And I'm not just talking about the ones from up north that you maybe, I'm talking about even in the South. You know, the GOP, it's supposed to be the grand old party, but we got like some grand old pansies, and that's the cleaned up version. And we got grand old progressives.
Right.
They've been no help with this.
Well, that's why it was so important to have Mr. McKinley's letter to President Trump and a unanimous resolution by the Daughters of Union Veterans that this is an attack on all of us. This is an attack on all of us. And we're going to be targeting these bigoted GOP types that would be inclined to vote against a floor amendment to get rid of the Strickland Amendment. We're going to target them, and we're going to tell them, you can't do this if you want the U.S. flag and all the symbols that you think are important to remain untouched.
Yep.
Because the Marxists are coming for you too, and if they come through the Reconciliation Memorial, they'll be right there after your stuff.
Yep.
You can count on it. Look at the history of the last 10 years.
Yep.
And they need to be told that, and they need to be told that, we're not willing to accept your bigotry on that. We are not willing to accept that. You're going to have to pull your head out, as my dad used to say. He was an old Air Force officer.
Yep.
You have to pull your head out, and you need to start working with normal America on stopping this woke cancel culture, getting rid of memorials and statues and symbols, which is nothing more than the Marxist playbook.
Yeah. And so you see a lot of similarities with this, with Arlington and other heritage preservation fights.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And we need to make common cause. One of the things that we did early on in the Arlington fight was make common cause with all the Italian Americans that were fighting to keep Columbus up. Yeah. And, again, why all the Columbus statues? Well, it's really easy. He is the most well-known Italian in American history. And who wouldn't want, you're an 1880s Italian immigrant. You don't speak English. You live on the Lower East Side of New York City and in the Bronx. And, this is your ticket. When you honor Italian Christopher Columbus, you're honoring the contributions of all Italian Americans. And that's the way the Italian community saw it. It wasn't because he was some monster to the American Indians that he found here. It was because he was an Italian that everybody knew and would relate to and would think well of the Italian community for having such a nice boy. So anyway, they got it. The Italian groups we worked with, they got it. And so we've been able to forge some alliances, that probably wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago. Yeah. And we'll continue to do that because this is a fight for normal America.
Yeah. And, this goes back to the historical ignorance of our country and the propaganda that we've been fed all my life and probably a good chunk of your life. The war was a huge issue, but we're still dealing with not just the attacks now on the monuments. We're dealing with, the fact that the winners get to write the history.
Absolutely.
And people do not realize that secession was something that was not seen as treason by many people, North or South. It was seen as
at West Point.
Yeah, that's right. And it was seen as, hey, wait a minute, just 80 years ago, the founding fathers, our fathers at that time, and our grandfathers at that time, they seceded. They seceded from England, right? Okay.
Empire.
Right. Yeah. And then later they seceded from the Articles of Confederation and made the Constitution.
That's right.
Well,
and P.G.T. Beauregard said it best. He said it was to repel an invasion, and further than that, we need not go. Those poor old white Southern boys from Georgia and South Carolina and other places, their home was invaded, and even a slave society has the right to defend its homeland from a military invasion. Absolute right.
Yeah. Well,
and so these people just need to get stuffed about it's about slavery.
Yeah.
They're morons. They're morons that get their history out of a comic book and out of Marxist playbooks.
I like what Brian McClanahan says. It was, and it's true, two slave-holding republics fighting. because you still had slaves in Kentucky. Matter of fact, I think the last slave auction in Kentucky was like December of 1865. You had a few slaves in New Jersey. You had a few in Delaware. You had, at some point after the war had already started, was before that's when they, I think, paid off for the people in D.C. who owned slaves to be released. And then there's some other, well, Missouri, it was still a slave state.
Yeah. Well, Charles Dickens, who was a keen American observer, said it best, that the Northern excuse about slavery being the cause of the war was nothing more than specious humbug to mask their attempt at economic domination of the South.
Yep. Yep.
And like P.G.T. Beauregard said, further than that, we need not go.
Yep.
So,
but
people should get a fight about that. And I'm glad that our community, the Confederate community, is up to the challenge. And we've actually been re-energized by the Arlington fight. It gives us something to fight for because, you see, it's got a 50-year loan period.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I'll probably be pushing up daisies.
Yeah, I'll be gone well before then.
Long before 50 years goes by. And so it'll be up to my children's generation to take up the fight, and then when they lay it down, my grandchildren's generation. So this is generational. It's a long-term fight. We need to build a human wall and a legal wall and a political wall around Section 16 and fight for it, and fight for it. And it's going to be a long fight. It's going to be a never-ending fight. Yeah. Because I don't think the Marxists are going to go away anytime soon. We're going to be fighting them, and that's fine. They're an adversary that I can get people excited about fighting.
Well, I hope we can, because a lot of people don't even realize that's what's at stake here, because they think, well, okay, I'm not from the South, I don't agree with the Confederacy, or I don't support slavery, whatever garbage they come up with, and so they think, well, it doesn't affect me, I don't care. But they don't understand, like you said, their goal is to take over, and they will destroy all of our heroes, all of our foundation, and put a new one. And they're already in the process in a lot of ways. That's the foundation that Obama was talking about, building a new foundation. But I don't see how we can separate, and I'm not saying that we have to go to war again. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying I think people will accept. I think this is linked to our fight to make people understand the real reasons behind the war, and that the South had I think at a minimum, we have to get people to understand that the people at that time, many North and South, believed secession was legal, believed they had almost a duty to do that when they were oppressed. I think,
and they considered it a United States, plural.
Right.
It wasn't a unified country. It was not a centralized dictatorship. It wasn't an empire. It was a collection of sovereign states in a compact that created a federal government to administer the rights and duties of that compact. Yeah. And the war changed all that. Yeah. The war changed it. Made it a war for empire and economic domination. And it led to the imperial presidency that we have now.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people want to slam Trump, but he didn't create this. You could say Lincoln created it, and it got worse, but it really got worse after. I mean, I don't think that we necessarily had to be where we're at today without what happened in 1913 and 1914, the income tax, and then
Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve and all that. I think but you know what? Those things, we were already centralized when those things happened. Not like we are now. I mean, FDR made it even worse. Wilson, FDR, and Truman, and so on. And it's only gotten worse. And you can point back to that time of when, now you had a government that, oh no, you can't leave. You're not. And if you're not free to leave, you're not free, right?
We want to use the Arlington Memorial as like a liberty tree, if you will, to so that people can learn the blessings of liberty and fight for it and fight to keep this memorial. We're going to have a birthday observance on October 25th that we're planning at Confederate Section 16. Even though the memorial probably won't be back by then, we want to observe the birthday of Sir Moses Ezekiel, who was born October 28th, 1842, and have a birthday observance with singing, Dixie, flags, speeches. So put that on your calendar, save the date. It'd be Saturday, October 25th from 2 till about 4. And you can find updates. I'll certainly keep David updated, and we'll keep Defend Arlington updated, and the SLRC sites will be updated. But we'd love you all to come and have a birthday observance on behalf of Moses Ezekiel. This is being sponsored by the family and friends of Sir Moses Ezekiel. So we'll have family members there, and anyway, it should be a good time.
It'd be interesting to see if Hegseth shows up.
Well, he's certainly going to be invited. We'll get him an engraved invitation, and we'll send one to the president too, and probably McKinley's great-grandnephew and people like that. And if you want to come in your GAR uniform, well, by God, put it on and go. And if you have a United Confederate Veterans uniform, put it on and let's go. So we'll have a good time, and we're going to start having regular events at the memorial, start using it more so that we can draw attention to it, that it needs to be protected, needs to be defended, and the memorial needs to come back right there at Section 16 and stay there forever.
Okay. There was one other thing that I wanted to ask you about in relation to the memorial. So the critics of the memorial, and we talked about them a little bit, this whole mantra of, well, it's divisive. It always just seems to be that everything on our side is divisive. Nothing on their side is divisive, just our side.
Because they preach woke Marxist history. And is it, okay, and it's been called the Reconciliation Memorial by its sculptor and everybody since then. Is it perfect reconciliation? No. No. But why don't they get credit for it? They were reaching out after the bloodiest war on the North American continent that killed almost 1 million people. 1 million people died in that war, civilians and military alike. And they're reaching out just little over 30 years from the time of the war, the guns fell silent. And give them a break. Yeah. Is it perfect reconciliation? Did they get it all right? No, but they get credit for it, damn it. And I haven't seen done better. And the blue and the gray showed up at that dedication. And every president, United States president, since Woodrow Wilson has sent wreaths to the memorial, including Barack Obama.
Wow. I didn't know that. I wouldn't have expected that.
He didn't know he was supposed to do that because nobody was going to tell him. They didn't give him any ice cream. But Trump did. And like I said, Barack Obama sent a wreath to on Confederate Memorial Day. And Confederate Memorial Day in Arlington is Jefferson Davis's birthday, the closest Saturday to June the 3rd. So we're hoping to also have an event for the 250th anniversary summer of 2026, have a Confederate Memorial Day celebration at Arlington. So
that would be great.
Let's get through the birthday observance, and then we'll work on that. Right.
And another thing too, they would have reunions up until about 1938. I think 1938 was the last reunion.
Big one.
And you would have both sides. They would get together.
And Franklin Roosevelt was there and dedicated the Peace Monument, which is a symbol of reconciliation. He dedicated the Peace Monument at Gettysburg. Yeah. And what was left of the blue and gray were there. Yeah. And sometime, if you get me a glass of whiskey if we're out somewhere, I will tell you the funniest story about the 1913 Gettysburg reunion you'll ever hear. And it really happened. And I got it from two old men who were there as young boys with their Confederate veteran father in 1913.
I take it it's not something you can tell on the air?
No, not quite. And I don't think I have time to tell it. But yeah, over a tumbler of whiskey, I get a little bit in my cups. I'll be happy to tell you it's the funniest story you're going to hear in a day or two.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to
And
that.
if I come on again, I might tell it.
Okay. Well, hey, that's not a problem getting you back on again.
Okay. Well, we want to keep you all updated and let you know what we're doing and keep everybody informed, because we don't need hundreds. We need thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions to join with us. You know, if we're going to turn this around and do more than just save the Reconciliation Memorial, we need all of normal America to work with us.
Absolutely.
And they should. And they should.
I think so. Any closing thoughts? Well,
pray for us. And if your last name is Rockefeller, give generously at defendarlington.org or the SLRC. You can contribute to the SLRC at www.slrc-csa.org. We're a nonprofit, 501c3. Your donations are tax deductible. We are very nonprofit. And I have been, Arlington has been my mistress for the last 3 years, and it's been a very demanding mistress. So
I bet. And
I had darker hair when this fight started. And it's not the road to riches, I can tell you.
Yeah.
And we need help. You need to stay with us on that. And I think that we are worth being your charity of choice. Your church should come first, but then give to us if you can. And like I said, if you're a Rockefeller, I'd sure like to talk to you. So
Defend Arlington also is on Facebook.
yes.
So, well,
And
hey,
the SRC is on Facebook. And it's a vibrant community. The SCV, if you're a Sons of Confederate Veterans member, look for the Telegraph. They're going to put out their own one-click. And if you're an SCV member, be sure you catch that and go to their one-click and contact your congressman. And for ours, it's defendarlington.org. But we're working, we've got SCV, UDC, Defend Arlington, Save Southern Heritage. A lot of these groups are working together, and it's wonderful to watch because, there's been lots of fights kind of like the Kilkenny Cats in the past over what I would have considered trivial issues. But now everybody's kind of getting in line, rolling up their sleeves, getting in the trenches, and we want to win this one. So
well,
stay with us, pray for us.
definitely will, and definitely have you back on.
All right.
And we'll might even send you a little bottle or something before we get you on.
Okay.
Well, hey, thank you for being with us, and I
Enjoyed it very much. Thank you for having me.
absolutely. And I'm going to, I told you I've got some family close to that area where you live. I'll let you know when I'm coming, and
I'm good for the nickel tour.
we can meet somewhere. So anyway, all
I'm
right.
good for the nickel tour. And there is a ton of craft brewery. There's about 30 craft breweries within 10 miles of downtown Black Mountain, and it's good. If you appreciate
Good beer.
real beer, you'll be in Mecca. It really is. I'm not a beer drinker anymore. I went from 350 pounds to 220. It took me a while, but I don't drink beer anymore. But I appreciate it, and my son William Wallace Lyons would be happy to be your guide. So
Okay.
come see us.
All righty. Well, I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Jonathan and Mary for their financial support for the month of July, August. We really appreciate it. Now, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please subscribe and listen and share it with your friends. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and X. Look for Dave's Raves, which are 2-minute audio commentaries on current events. We're making some changes to that. Some will be written and posted on the site. The Tennessee Firearms Association will have its yearly fundraiser Saturday, September 6th, beginning at 9 a.m. at the Farm Bureau Expo Center at the James E. Ward Agricultural Center, 945 East Bador Parkway Lebanon, Tennessee. Guest speaker is General Michael Flynn. Representative Rose will be there as well. There'll be vendors galore and auctions plus lunch. There's been an addition to the lineup. Brett Rogers, author of The Goal is to Win, will be there. He'll give a special 1-hour training from 9:30 to 10:30 on effective campaigning. As I mentioned before, I've heard him and he provided some of the best political training I've ever seen. Take advantage of this. It's a great event. Hope to see you there. Tickets are $100. Tables of 6 are $750, placed much closer to the stage. Don't wait till the day of. There's no guarantee you can get tickets. Go to tfalac.org for the event and get your tickets now. Like I said, the keynote speaker is Michael Flynn. The Trump-Reagan dinner at Stewart County is Thursday, 9/11. That's Monday, September, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, apologize. 9/11, 6 o'clock at the Stewart County Visitor Center. Tickets are $25 or a table of 6 for $120. We are going to have some auctions. We are going to have some silent auction stuff and possibly some door prizes. We're doing a forum, and we will have at least 6 of the candidates for the 7th District election. And so hope to see you there. Hope you come out. Get your tickets now. Nate Dressel, a combat veteran and supporter, a civilian supporter of Defend the Guard legislation, will join us to tell us why this legislation is needed and how the senior leaders of the Tennessee National Guard and elected representatives in a General Assembly are working to defeat the legislation and the disgraceful reasons why. That show is this Monday, Labor Day, 4 o'clock. Then at 7, we'll have Stuart Parks of J6 fame and also a candidate in the 7th District special election to join us. We'll talk with him about his experiences in prison and why he is running. Hope you'll join us. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.